Welcome to the third in the series of 4 videos on how to win at Connect 4. The purpose of this video is to get you up to expert level. In order to get there, let's just recap on some of the points we've covered already. The first thing is the push or the forced move. We just playing conventional yellow first. And then yellow plays the third piece, which means that red is forced to play here to stop yellow from winning. So that's a push from yellow. Red does that. Just play out a little bit more. You can see the next concept, which is the either or. In this case, red has the either or. Red plays here. Red now has an option on his next move to play either here to win or here to win. That's the either or. Yellow obviously can't stop both, can only stop one, and therefore red's going to win. The final concept is the combination. Yellow's turn to play. Yellow plays in column 2 to create the option for a combination here. Yellow can win on this row, obviously with a piece there, or on this diagonal up here, the piece there. The combination is where the 2 winning pieces are one above another. So in this case, this one and this one. Red, doesn't matter what red does now, red can't win. Red doesn't want to place in this column 1 because if he does, then yellow places above him and wins. So red's looking for a different win, but yellow of course has no such problem. Red is now forced to play first push move, but that doesn't help him. Yellow carries on to win because of that combination, and red couldn't stop that. Now we need to introduce the concept of the no-go. In this example that we've just played through with the combination win, it was actually this piece here that yellow played that created the ability to make a combination win. And if red had foreseen that, then obviously red would want to place his piece here instead of the yellow piece. So if we go back to that position, we've just taken the game back to where yellow makes what is really the winning move. Yellow wants to place a piece here to give him that combination ending there or there. And obviously if red has spotted this, then the last place on the board that red wants to go is here. Because if red does go here, like that, then yellow goes on top. So if red is thinking about this far enough ahead, he recognises that he is in a position where he cannot place a piece into column 2. If he places a piece into column 2, he's likely to lose. Yellow, on the other hand, has probably thought this through and recognises he really wants red to place a piece in column 2. And this is where the no-go and the push move come together. For red, column 2, that piece is a no-go. If red plays there, yellow wins. Ironically, if yellow plays there, then red can stop the win. So if it's red's turn now, if red doesn't play there, let's say red plays up here instead, and yellow is so focused on trying to make this work, he plays there, then obviously red has a great block, and all that work from yellow goes to waste. Now that is quite an advanced example of a no-go, and they can come up in a much simpler format than that. I'll show you what is probably the simplest format. So if we play some early moves of a game, again yellow goes first, red on top, yellow, red obviously has to avoid an either or here, it goes to the obvious place, yellow pushes it, red has to block, yellow wants to dominate the middle, red probably makes a mistake at this point, but nevertheless, see how this plays through. Yellow on top, red nearly has an either or. Obviously this is a winning piece for red, so that's a push. Yellow plays here. Now, from this position, red has a win here, but he can't make that play until there's another piece already played. So red has to be the second player to play in in row 2, in column 2. And so this is a no-go for yellow. Yellow can't play column 2 because if yellow plays column 2, red will win. The only time that isn't going to happen, isn't going to be correct, is if in playing column 2, yellow does win. Now there isn't a possibility of that here. So from yellow's point of view, column 2 no go, because if he goes there, red automatically wins. You might say, well, that doesn't really matter. Column 2 isn't that important to yellow, and yellow can therefore just ignore column 2 and concentrate on the rest of the board. But particularly when you're playing at a high level, you will find that the game would naturally play to a draw, with neither player getting a line of 4 or longer. The question then is, in this example, can the game play to a natural draw, or will yellow at some stage be forced to play into column 2? If we fill out the rest of the board so that you can see where the game naturally gets to, assuming 2 equal players, then you'll see the position that yellow finds himself in. And now yellow has no choice on where to play. All of the other columns are filled in. There is only column 2 left to play in. Yellow can't not go. In Connect 4, there's never the option to pass. So yellow has to play. And for yellow, column 2 is a no-go. So we know that if yellow plays in column 2, yellow will lose. Interestingly, there are some places in column 2 where yellow could potentially win, and those places are at the very top, row 6 and also row 4 in column 2. But because of the way the Connect 4 board works, yellow will never get an option to play in those places. So yellow goes next, and in this case yellow loses. Red's got his line of 4 or more, 5 in this case, and there was nothing yellow could do to stop that. If that didn't happen, if say for instance there was a yellow here instead of a red and the game continued, yellow still couldn't get a win out of this, interestingly. You play out the rest of the yellow turn and red plays. Yellow plays, and then red plays his final piece here, and then nobody has managed to win. And we'll come to why that happens when you examine the layout of the Connect 4 board. The board is 7 columns by 6 rows. In other words, there are 42 pieces in total. Half of them are red, half of them are yellow, so 21 of each. So whenever we are in the position of a no-go column for one player or the other, the first row in that column will always be played by the first player, and the second row in that column is playable by the second player, and it alternates, as we've seen in these 2 columns, we played this one through, yellow, red, yellow, red, yellow, red. And you go back, and when you play the final column, it's yellow again to play. And that's because the rest of the board is filled up, and the rest of the board is always an even number. And so we always start with player 1 to where you're forced to fill a new column. Player 1 is the first player into that column. So in order for player 1 to win by playing a piece in the final columns, in this case column 2 or column 1, he would have to be able to win with a piece in an odd numbered row, so in rows 1 or 3 or 5. And in this example he didn't have that option. Rows 1, 3 and 5 never gave him a win. So the second player, in this case the red player, he's in the opposite position. He can only win if he puts a piece into an even numbered row, so in this case row 2, 4 or 6. Now he didn't have a win at rows 4 or 6, but he did have a win at row 2. And if he didn't have that win at row 2, then it would have been a draw. If there had been, for instance, a yellow piece there, for red, well, red wouldn't win in that case. So red is looking to create, by the end of a game, a winning piece on an even number, in an even numbered row in the final columns. And the first player, the yellow player in this case, is looking to win with an odd numbered piece in the final columns. And unfortunately in this case yellow had even numbered piece wins and therefore was highly unlikely to win. But now we come to a very interesting point. A no-go is the most likely way of winning at advanced level. And a no-go is created by a position where another player, the other player, cannot place a piece in a particular column, because if he does so, then that opens up an opportunity for you as the player following. Now, the first piece ever to go into a column, so any pieces in row 1 down here, can never be in themselves a no-go piece because they can always be played. The 7 original playing positions are those 7 at the bottom. They're available to everybody and they can't be stopped. The first set of positions that are potential no-goes are the ones above it. In other words, are the even column, the even rows in a column, and therefore this creates a benefit for the second player. There is no point in having a winning position which is at a higher row than an opponent's winning position in the same column, because you'll never get to that. Your opponent will play the piece before you do, and therefore the first no-go that's of any value at all is row 2 to player 2. And at most expert level of games, it will be the player who goes second who can make the most use of that no-go. It will be the second player who can place his winning piece first, because more often than not the first player doesn't get a chance to place a winning piece until row 3, which obviously is after row 2. So where you have 2 expert players playing each other, these players will normally be the player who plays second who wins, which is quite unusual. And almost every other level of play, including the sort of master level, the absolute brilliant player, they will generally win if they go first, but there are very few players at that level. At the very beginner level, you'll generally win or you'll more often win if you go first, and as you get slightly better, you'll definitely win more often if you go first. But when you get to this expert level, it is the one level at Connect 4 where going second will probably mean you do win. So let's see one final game, and we'll bring together as many of these concepts as we can reasonably in a single game, and I will just give a demonstration of some of the thinking in making these moves. The convention in this series is for yellow to go first, so yellow makes the classic opening move, which often is a winning move, but as we've seen before, at certain levels it might cause a problem. This means red has to follow with the move in the middle column as well on top. The middle column opens up the most possibilities for wins. Any either horizontal or diagonal line of 4 or more pieces of your colour must go through this middle column. If you can't have it, the different combinations, you'll see that it is not possible to win with a horizontal or a diagonal line without a piece, one of those pieces being in the middle column. So the middle column is extremely important. And continuing that theme, yellow builds in the middle. Red has 2 issues here. He does want to build in the middle as well, clearly, but he also needs to stop yellow winning by building out at the bottom. And yellow is the only player, by having played in the middle, is the only player who can win with an either or on that bottom row. So red has to stop this somehow as well. So red is thinking along those lines and plays here rather than in the middle, which has been happening before. Yellow is looking for a diagonal, maybe, and so yellow plays here, and red is keen on this row here, so he places his piece here. Yellow recognises this and stops at least one end of that with this piece. Now red is playing a long way ahead with this move, and in some ways it's a bit of a cheat in a way. Red recognises that he needs to stop a potential 4 in a line here, and he can place a piece in any of those. If, however, he places a piece here, then yellow can place on top of him, and likewise if he places here, yellow can place on top of him. Yellow, having blocked one end of his row of 4, would effectively block the other. So this is a very advanced move. Red plays at the far end, and that also opens up a possibility up here. So yellow continues to play in the middle, and now yellow has this possibility going this way here. So red plays to block it, and red creates a push, and yellow has no choice now. Yellow has to play here because of that push, and so yellow does that. So it's red's turn. Red doesn't really want to play in columns 2 or 3 because it would enable yellow to play above him, and basically the 4th column is still very helpful, obviously, to red. So red plays in the 4th column, and yellow follows up, and we have a not uncommon sight where the entirety of the 4th column is filled in. In this case, yellow places that final piece and has created quite a powerful position. Red needs to block off some of those options open to yellow, so plays next to column 4 and column 5, and yellow plays above. So in this case, red plays in the final column, yellow follows up, and we have sort of a race to the top, and with that move yellow can see a possible win here if he can place a piece there, and perhaps more importantly, he's got a combination with that piece there and that piece there. If he can get a piece into there, he gets a combination and he can win with these two columns being filled up. So now red effectively has a block on this column here. Red can't play there because yellow would get a win by playing above it. Red can't play here because yellow gets that combination and a guaranteed win as well. So red can only play in these three columns, on columns 1, 2 and 3 on the left hand side. And so he doesn't want to play in columns 2 or 3 because that would prevent him getting the win. So red plays in column 1. And now yellow is in a similar position because yellow doesn't want to play in column 7 because red will play and block that possibility for a combination win. And he doesn't want to play into column 6 because then red again blocks here and it would create a push down here. So yellow also is looking at playing in the left hand side now, columns 1, 2 and 3, and he also recognises that if he plays in column 2 or column 3, that would enable red to place above him, and so he also continues to play into column 1, and red follows that logic. Having got to this stage, what happens is that the two players fill up now column 1, and again this is quite common in games for better players where the players recognise there are blocks on columns and that they have to fill up columns that are on the face of it irrelevant. They might actually turn out to be relevant, but on the face of it column 1 could have no effect on the game, no impact, and therefore the two players fill them up. But because, we go back to this point again, yellow goes first and it's yellow's turn again, and he has to put a piece somewhere, and he recognises that if he puts a piece in column 2 or column 3, then it does give red the ability to win the game, and if he puts a piece into column 6 or column 7, then it means he can't put his winning moves in. So the least damage for yellow is column 2, and that also opens up this possibility, which was always there to some extent, for a diagonal win. Red follows, and then we've been through this logic before. Yellow follows again, and look, yellow might get a win here on row 3, which is great. That is it's an odd number, and yellow went first, so he wants an odd number row win. That's brilliant, but unfortunately it's above the row 2 win, and so row 2 will always be filled up before row 3. So yes, he's got a potential win, but that doesn't really do him any good. Red continues. We fill up yellow and red. So again, it's yellow's turn. He has to place a piece in one of these 3 remaining columns. If he places a piece into column 3, he loses because red goes above him. If he places a piece into column 6, then red places a piece above him. And interestingly, red has an either or at that point. You imagine a red piece in there. He has an either or. You place a piece, red can place a piece there or there. And he also has a combination because there'll be a piece there and there, and therefore that creates a push on yellow. So yellow really does not want to go there, and we see yellow forced into putting a piece into column 7, which he really didn't want to do. He was trying to save that piece, so he had that one available. Red follows, and red ends the column again, as red often does, because he's the second player and there's an even number of pieces in each column. Yellow now has no choice, and this is quite often how the games end. You're left with a couple of columns, and they are columns that are bound to create a win for one of the players. Yellow plays, it's red's turn, And there is a push here. Red has to play here, regardless of the other tactical issues. Red has to play in that place. Now, yellow has only 2 columns to play in. He can play here. It doesn't create a win because the win requires a piece there, which he won't have. And there is, of course, the push anyway. He has to play exactly where he didn't want to play. He plays his piece, and in this case, red wins the game. And again, you'll see red went second, and red had this piece in as one of his first pieces, as his first piece, and that at this level enables red to dominate the game. In the fourth and final video, we will see how yellow can counter this, and indeed the fourth and final video is at a level that very few people play at. It's totally understood that the expert or the computer playing Connect 4 is going to win if he goes first and he plays the center column 4, as we started here. But in the real world, there are very few players who are that good, and you aren't playing computers. So that means that actually, at this level, you are better off going second than going first.